Hello, everyone. My name is Jaquise Moore. I told you 20 minutes ago that you do not want to miss this, and I'm so serious. For those who do not know, my name is Jaquise. I just said, see, I'm so nervous. Don't you love this live stuff? It just comes in. Yeah. Okay, I am the host of this awesome page, Learning with Jasmine, and I am an autism mom advocate, parent supporter, special needs coordinator. The list goes down, down, down. And I'm just so thankful for this opportunity to be here, you guys. For those who don't know, this is a safe place. I started off literally with, I can't do this. And now it has grown over a year. Yeah, about a year now since the pandemic. And it's been awesome, you guys. I thank you all for just support and, just contacting me for any support and help. And so anyway, so this person right here, she's going to introduce herself in a few minutes, but I wanted to share the story. One of my presenters about 2 weeks ago contacted me and said, you have to look at this video. And I was like, oh, I want her on my show. And literally, it has been a journey for us to actually be on this Zoom.
Yes.
I thought it was yesterday. She thought it was a different time. It was like, but we are happy we are here, and so we're gonna get started. So please introduce yourself and tell us about your profession, or whatever else you want to talk about in a kind of like personal way.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I really look
Yes.
forward to this. Yeah, so my name is Christel. I'm a mom of 2 boys. Both of them have autism, slightly different varieties, and expressed in completely different ways. But they're 7 and 10 years old. And well, my oldest son was diagnosed when he just turned 5 years old, and so that's kind of when my autism journey started. So I've kind of been learning over the last 5 years, and then we learned about his younger brother's autism, which, because it expressed itself in a completely different way, we didn't really pick up on it until he was also a bit older. So it's just been one big learning journey. I live in Copenhagen, Denmark, and that's one of the reasons I think we can use that as an excuse to say that's the reason why it was a little bit tricky to get this to happen.
Denmark, Maryland, you guys.
Because I think you sort of just had breakfast, and I'm soon gonna have dinner, and so.
But I'm like messaging you like, okay, is it tomorrow? Is it today? And you're like, it's tomorrow. I thought it was Wednesday. No, I thought it was Thursday.
Then I was messaging you saying, I'm on Zoom now, I'm ready. And you're like, no, it's not
getting I'm getting like the message like, why is she on Zoom right now? Didn't even think about it. But anyway, you guys, we're here.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm half American and half Danish. My dad's from Oregon, my mom's from Denmark, and I live in Denmark. So that's kind of a bit about me. I for work, I have my own company where I work with business and sort of websites and that kind of thing. So it's very different to kind of working with children. So I've really just kind of learned about my children through them. I don't have any kind of professional background working with kids. My kids have been my teacher, basically. So
well, yeah, that's why learning with Jasmine is all about.
Yeah, I love the name.
The professional side is what actually have brought me my child's experiences, and expressing those things have actually positioned me to those positions professionally. But I don't have any degree. I don't have any degree, but I have the title. So that makes sense to you guys. Yay! you guys. Okay, so when we have the segments tell your story, it is literally about parents, real life parents. We are, living in this moment every single time. And so we actually have the tell your story side, and then we have the superhero brain. Okay, the superhero brain, you guys. I don't even know your story as a mom, so this is gonna be new, you guys. To me, this is something that the expression, everything, the feeling is all gonna be new, you guys. But then we definitely want to talk about how the interesting thing too is how all of that came about with the superhero, because it's together. It's definitely
Oh yeah, it's been part of it's part of the
yes,
story.
yes.
And
So
I never.
we're gonna just jump right on here, and you have
I
my
will.
talk away. It's your show now.
Cool,
No
thank
pressure, no pressure. Okay, but go ahead.
So when I had my first son, I just always had this feeling that he sort of functioned differently than other kids. So I would meet up with other moms that had babies in the same age, and he would just never be comfortable when we were around other people. When grandparents wanted to hold him, even if he was asleep, he would just start screaming as soon as someone else held him. And there were so many parts of it that when I look back, I really recognize that there
were signs, but we were not educated. We didn't know.
Exactly.
We were just like, okay, he just didn't want to be held. But that was a sign right there. Yeah.
Exactly. And he was also my first kid, so I really didn't have anything to compare with. And I think some people probably looked at me and my husband and sort of went, well, they're probably just getting used to parenthood. They're probably just a little bit over high strung around their baby, because
Right.
and so I was home with him until he was 1.5, and then my sister looked after him for 6 months, and then when he was at two, he started in daycare. And when he started in daycare, within the first week, he started to hit himself, and that was really sort of strange for me, because for me, like, the harming yourself is, it was somehow kind of almost
Heartbreaking.
like a yeah, heartbreaking, and it almost felt like it wasn't human. Somehow it just felt like,
Right.
as humans, we're not really like built to hurt ourselves. So
Right.
it was just, I had a really hard time. But he would sort of slap himself in the face and stuff, and but then he also had that age where tantrums are common and stuff. So again, it was really hard to kind of see what was what. Then he went on to kindergarten, and then he liked that, and he was fine about that. But then we got to one summer holiday, and not knowing anything about autism and not knowing that we were autism parents, we had planned a completely normal summer holiday, which meant lots of spontaneity, not
Lots
many
of sensory, just randomly just coming on your face. Yeah.
Exactly. And
I can imagine.
yeah, and we'd kind of, we didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't have, we hadn't booked like any sort of big wild travel plans, but my husband's from England, so we'd booked to go and travel and see his family and visit my family and visit some friends. And so it was all these little 2 or 3 days here, then come back home 2 or 3 days, then go somewhere else for 2 or 3 days. And he just got more and more miserable as the summer went on, and he kept saying just like, I'm so confused, I'm so confused. At one point we actually ended up in the emergency room because he got some really heavy stomach pains, and the only thing that we could guess that it would be was the appendix. But what it turned out later, and what we understood later, was that it was actually just anxiety from all of these experiences that just didn't make sense to him.
And I just want to stop here right here. For most individuals with ASD, their stomachs already hurt, you guys. And so just to keep in mind that I've already shared that with you guys before. Jasmine's stomach usually hurts every day. FYI, fiber works really well. You guys, popcorn. One day I was like, why is she pooping so much? But I was giving her popcorn 2 or 3 days. Didn't really realize it wasn't clicking right there, and my mom was like, because of popcorn. And I'm like, oh my goodness. We got to lower that out because I'm the one who's basically making sure that she's clean. But it works, you guys. And it actually eliminates the level of stress when the stomach is, clean out. I mean, come on now. That's how we are. We feel much better when we go to the bathroom. So definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we came back after that summer holiday, he went back into the kindergarten that he felt really happy in before the summer, and he just completely fell apart. I mean, his self-harm went from kind of just slapping himself in the face to he would go to kindergarten, and then he would need 10 days to kind of just recover, like until we got to a point where he could sleep and eat and just function reasonably normally again. And he had so many meltdowns, and he got really, really self-harming. And that for me, there was a period of about 6-8 weeks that was absolutely the worst time in my life, because he had so many meltdowns, and he was so sensitive to anything in the environment that wasn't exactly how he needed it to be. That at the very lowest point, there was sort of 3 or 4 times an hour where I physically had to restrain him so that he wouldn't cause damage to himself. He tried to crack his skull open on sharp corners, and he tried to strangle himself by shoving toys down his throat. And I mean, he tried to pull his ears off his head. It was really, really heartbreaking. And at the time, his younger brother was only just under 2 years old. So I also had the younger brother who was really
watching
scared and absolutely couldn't understand what was going on, but there was just all this screaming and all this scary behavior going on. And so just randomly one evening, I was watching TV, and there was a documentary on TV about autism. And I was just sort of flicking through the channels, and I landed on this. And then parents were talking about how, in what ways the autism expressed in their kids. And they started talking about things like, having a hard time sleeping at night, and, being particular about foods. And I was listening to it, and I was like,
it just clicked, right? Exactly.
This ticks pretty much every single thing. So I thought, could it be? So I called my mom, who's a special needs teacher, and she's worked with autistic teenagers for years and years. And I said, I just watched this, and I really expected her to just sort of say, okay, Christel, you're just being a little bit hysterical now. Your kid doesn't have autism. Just calm down. Just because you watched a documentary doesn't, And so I called her, and I was like, look, I watched this thing on TV. It's really, really similar to Kian. What do you think? And I'll never forget her response. She said, yeah, I've kind of noticed that for the last 2 or 3 years, but I really thought that this was, you needed to discover it for yourself. And I was like, what?
Do we have our moms are they related? Because that's exactly kind of what my mother said to me.
Oh wow, that is so funny.
Because and it's nothing bad about that. I think their intention was that hearing that for the maybe first time from someone might be in our feelings, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is so common, so true for those who are listening, and they're like, okay, that's what mama said or whatever, that's in your feelings. But for us, I think it's But we wish that you guys would have said something a while back. But it's interesting how when was your first child's diagnosis? What was
When he
his
was
age?
5.
So around that time, 2 or 3 years before, she might have seen it from the professional side, but it wasn't probably as clear.
Yeah, exactly.
And so she was like, okay, let me wing it. Let me
Yeah,
stretch a little bit more to kind of see if was like a actual one-time thing, that coincidence, that situation, or versus an actual behavior or lifestyle that is something that's going to be more accurate.
exactly.
So that's probably why. But we're like, no, you should have told us. Yes.
Exactly. And I think one of the big sort of arts and challenges of motherhood is to balance that. When do you kind of take a step back and let your kids just discover stuff on their own, and when do you meddle? And I think that was probably also her kind of feeling that this is something they kind of need to discover on their own. And so, but at the time, because my son was really quite, he really was not in a happy place. He was really self-harming. I spoke to the kindergarten, and they were like, no, he has eye contact, so he can't be autistic.
That's what they said to me about Jasmine.
Really?
Yes. The only thing oh no, she can hear her voice, she can hear me, like she recognized her name, she wants a hug,
Yeah.
all those things, but really the eye contact. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. Because I thought so. I thought she had autism at age 2, but she was 7 when she diagnosed. And it was clear that she has autism. Yeah. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, we're halfway around the world from each other, and it's exactly the same story, basically. But I think
Yes, and majority of people that's on here, they say the same thing.
yeah, and I speak to lots of parents here too that have really, really similar stories. So and so I spoke to the kindergarten. They were like, no, but they were like, you go to the doctor if that'll make you feel better. So I went to the doctor, and I was like, look, I'm seeing these and these signs. That's all consistent. But my son is really, really, really good at masking. And so a lot of the behaviors that we saw at home, they didn't see there. So he wasn't self-harming at kindergarten, but he was self-harming at home. He didn't have meltdowns at kindergarten, but he had meltdowns at home.
I'm agreeing with you.
Lots of that stuff. So I went to the doctor and asked if we could have a referral to go and see a child psychiatrist and start an assessment process. And she was like, well, if the kindergarten isn't seeing the same thing as you, then maybe you need support, to learn how to set boundaries for him, or maybe you need to learn how to handle conflict in a different way. And I was like, seriously?
I'm getting mad already.
I was just as capable of handling conflict with him 6 months ago as I am now, but now he's like trying to crack his skull open. So, but anyways.
That's different, okay?
So I went
versus harming.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So it went back and forth. I banged my head against a wall several times trying to get help and get assessed. And we were right in the middle of moving from one apartment to another at the time. And we managed to sell our apartment for more money than we expected. So we used that extra money to go and get him assessed privately. And it took them like 3.5 weeks. And they were like, yeah, he has autism.
Oh, wow.
So and then from there, it was then really sort of a learning journey. He was in such a bad place at the time. We tried to kind of speak to the kindergarten and stuff, but because they didn't really, even when we had the piece of paper, they didn't quite really believe us. And they didn't really.
So let me stop you everyone right here. Okay, this is the other side of Jaquise. I was a preschool teacher for over 20 years. Okay. Y'all don't know how old I'm like. Hey. Over 20 years, you guys. And I'm gonna let you know right now. The only experience and knowledge that I knew about autism was my last job. And I had 3 individuals in my classroom that had autism. Did we get the certification, the training as teachers? No. Okay. Who gave the information to me? The parents. Okay. Mm-hmm. So just to be mindful of when you take your child to daycare, they may not be certified. They may not have the training. They just have like maybe an autism course just to move on so that they can get the never mind. I'm not gonna tell y'all what they can get. the yearly, okay. But that's what it is, okay? Because even like a general ed teacher, they're not certified in autism. They're not certified in special education. So it just be mindful of it's beyond, is this place safe and this place is healthy, need, and is this place going to give me the curriculum, and what can I do as a parent to, if the teacher's not educated in the field, in the actual diagnosis, then what can I do to help support my child in that environment? So letting the teachers know about now on the flip side, teachers, please listen to the parents because they know everything that goes along with their child. So that's exactly how I was educated in a little bit of time that I had. But moving forward, I didn't apply those things as a mom because I forgot, It was no actual detail. It was like, this is what you do, and don't do that right now. Don't do that with this child. So that's how I learned to have that child into my classroom. But other than that, I didn't know about autism. So that's just a little FYI. That's maybe why they were not as open, because they were not certified.
Actually, in my son's case, it was actually the opposite. They were actually trained in special needs.
Okay, and I was trying to get them.
No, but this was kind of the flip side of being trained on autism, because they were really well trained, and they actually, it was sort of a mainstream kindergarten, but they had I think 3 or 4 places for kids with autism. Wow. But because this was a kindergarten and it was sort of early on, the kids that had been diagnosed with autism at that age were typically nonverbal kids. So all of their experience with autism were with nonverbal kids. So when I came along and said, oh, I think my son has autism, they were like, no. And even when we then came and said, look, he's, he now has a diagnosis, and I think it was so far away from their experience of autism. So we tried to get that situation to work for him, but it didn't really. And we ended up taking him out of that. And then
I can see why.
Yeah. And then he spent 6 months at home before it was time to start real school. Mm-hmm. And then he started in a special education school for where it's in the town that we live. They take everyone with special needs and they go to sort of one school. And that started off working really well, but then he switched classes, and in his new class, my son is one of these really sort of careful kids, the quiet, anxious, prone kind of kid. Because they mixed all kinds of different kids together, then he was in a class with kids that were quite loud, that were quite violent. And so he developed school refusal in the end, because it was just really hard for him to go to school. And so we ended up pulling him out of school again, without having any other school for him to go to. So I ended up homeschooling him for almost 2 years.
You sound like me. You definitely have, you're just doing the same thing. Oh my
There's so much
goodness.
about our story that's similar.
That's
It's crazy.
crazy, right? Oh my goodness. Okay. Mm.
And so, so I homeschooled him for almost 2 years. One of those years was together with his best friend from the old school, and then when we let's see, last summer I found a school that was just opening, and it was really small school, small groups, all this kind of stuff. And so I actually managed to get both him and my youngest son, who was just sort of old enough to start school, into that little school. And because it's a really small school, I mean, right now there's like 15 kids at the school.
Oh.
And of course, with each year, as the school grows, there's going to be more kids. When the school
Right.
is full, there are probably going to be sort of 80, 90 kids. But still, really, really small compared to pretty much
Right.
anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now him and his brother share a support teacher, but otherwise they're sort of part of the regular curriculum and stuff, and they love it. It's working really well, and they're both in school now. So I'm just kind of like counting my blessings and hoping this continues until they're like 18.
Yes. Well, on the other side, on this side, it's like, she ain't going nowhere. No, she's actually in a homeschool program online virtual school called Accelis Academy. I am just a parent. I am not promoting with pay, you guys, but this is a really great school for those who are looking for a virtual homeschool program, Accelis Academy.
Cool.
So, yes.
Yeah, and there's
You're like-
many more sort of
Yes.
homeschooling options in the US. Like here, homeschooling is quite unusual, and there's only 5 million people in the country. So it's sort of, there are limits to how many people actually end up doing homeschooling and stuff. So I think last year was the first time that they launched sort of online school in any kind of way. So
I know everyone everyone everywhere was a trying experience. Yes, definitely a trying experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is just the surface. That is just the surface. And great, it's like similar stories and everything that comes along with children with ASD, or it's just similar stories, definitely, you guys. But I love the way that you are ready to set up. You can set up in a few minutes. You can share it, you guys. Usually we just talking, and the presenter and myself, but we have PowerPoints, you guys.
We have PowerPoint today.
Woo! Yes, super excited, you guys. And so
I wanted to share a few tips and just experiences from our homeschooling journey.
Yes. So homeschool activities, you guys. And then we're going to be talking about, she's going to give encouragement to the parents. And then at the end, she's going to be talking about superhero brain.
Yes.
Yay.
Cool. Well,
I'm
let me just do
excited.
my screen share, and then we're ready. Let's see here. This is Zoom talking. So let's get this on.
I'm super excited.
There. So this picture here is really what I feel like our kind of homeschooling journey was for the 2 years that we homeschooled. When I took my son out of school, he was absolutely, I mean, if I said the word school at home, he would curl up in the fetal position and he would be nonverbal for 2 or 3 hours after that.
That's like with Jasmine with math.
Yeah.
So I don't need to try to say math. I'll be like, okay, next. I'm sure she'll see math, but I'll be like, okay, I don't want to say it.
And so, it was, he was just really broken, and he believed that he was never going to learn to read. His self-confidence had been really, really damaged. So our homeschooling journey was really kind of about giving him his wings again, and getting that belief back in that, yes, he can learn, and yes, he is good at lots of different stuff.
Yes, I like that.
environment for him. It was the right environment for a whole lot of other kids, but not for him. So so yeah, we a typical day in our sort of homeschool was and I put down sort of balancing flexibility and structure because that is what I felt was really the balancing act. That of course he needed the structure, but at the same time, the luxury of homeschooling is that you also have that flexibility to just read your child and adapt everything to them. So
Absolutely.
And one of those things actually that when we started doing homeschool activities, then say we would be doing some writing, and then he'd ask me, okay, so how many minutes are we doing this? And then I'd say, okay, we're doing this for like 20 minutes or whatever. And then he'd like be looking at the clock, and then when it was 20 minutes sharp, whether he was done with what he was doing or not, he could be in the middle of a sentence, but if it was 20 minutes, then it was 20 minutes, and then he'd just drop his pencil and go and do something else. And I thought, well, this is not really how life works. It's not really how I want him to approach learning.
Right.
So what we ended up doing was that we would that I didn't actually put any timings on anything, but it was about what he wanted to complete that day. If so, it was more about the achievement, and if he meant, if for example, if he wanted to do if we were going to do 2 pages in our math book, then if it took him 10 minutes to do those 2 pages, then he was done for the day. If it took him 2 hours, then it took him 2 hours. But that it was about the achievement rather than just kind of counting the minutes.
I'm writing that down, achievement versus time, and I'm making a note because, and I'm going to say this, you guys, I've noticed as a parent with a child who has autism, Jasmine will look at the time too, and it will be more like a meltdown or a tantrum. It doesn't matter which one it is for time. But achievement, even if it comes down to a 2.5 hour thing, but her expression between the 2.5 hour thing, we could take breaks, we can take all those type of things that comes along with, okay, it might have taken her 2.5 hours to actually complete the work, but we've taken breaks, and she actually would love to learn, to see, to feel that achievement versus time. So that's a note for me as a parent, because yes, we are on a issues with math right now.
We the way I actually the idea I got about it was that my youngest son had a summer party at the kindergarten he went to, and it was for all the families. We went over there, and they had, I mean, that's kind of like the the nightmare scenario for both of my kids, is like 90 people gathered. They don't know hardly any of them. It's noisy. But my oldest son, what they'd done was that they gave the kids like a little checklist, and they had different posts around the playground where the kids could then go and do activities. And then if you had a cross in every box, then you got some kind of prize. And I was expecting this summer party to be an absolute disaster for both of my kids. But as soon as my son got the checklist, he was like, oh, right, I've got a job to do here. And he kind of blended out all the other stuff. And he was just focused on like, okay, I haven't done face painting yet. Where do I do face painting? And I thought, no way is he going to let some stranger put paint on his face. But there he was, painted as a tiger. And so I thought that's really interesting that doing checklists. So we started doing checklists at the start of each day. And I'll show you a picture in a minute of what they looked like, where we just said, like, this is what we're going to try and do today. And then it was up to him, and this was a learning experience over time. Like he wasn't able to do that from day one, but I really wanted him to start taking some responsibility for his own learning, and kind of learning about himself and how how to approach learning.
Mm-hmm.
So at the start of the day, he would have a checklist. And then it was up to him when he wanted to do stuff. So I didn't say, okay, now you have to do maths, now you have to do Danish, but for you, the equivalent would be English. Now we're doing history or whatever. It would just be, it was up to him when he wanted to take a break. It was up to him, and over time, then we had to take it one little step at a time.
Right.
He wasn't sort of capable and able to do that from day one, but over time he actually managed to sort of manage his day and learn to feel, okay, I think I need a break now. We said, okay, well, when do you want me to come and find you? Okay, after 20 minutes, then I would come and get him. And what it kind of meant, but the rule was you were not allowed to game until you'd done all of your schoolwork. So that was kind of like the
Not allowed
carrot.
to what?
Sorry, what?
Not allowed to do what?
To do gaming, because my son loves Minecraft, so he wasn't allowed to play Minecraft until he'd finished all of his schoolwork. So he had
that's like me with the computer use. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. But apart from that, he could, if he did everything in an hour and a half, then that was it. And if he did it in 4 hours, then that's how it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something that we learned over time, and that I think he still uses quite a lot now that he's in a school. But we did, how we did our days was that from 8:30 to 9, we had sort of a start of day routine where we did meditation for 2 minutes. I had like some meditation music on my phone, and then it was just about closing your eyes and then just being still, and just 2 minutes. And then after that, we did some yoga, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. And then they had a diary. Mm-hmm. And in the diary, they always wrote, the date, the day of the week, what season is it. Then they measured the temperature inside and outside. So I had I got 2 thermometers. And then I decided, I borrowed a book at the library about clouds, and so I copied a page of that, and then every day we looked at the sky and we tried to identify what kind of clouds were in the sky. So they would also write down in their diary like what kind of clouds were there today. Then after that was learning, and I used workbooks, the kind where they do exercises and stuff. And it was mostly because I had no sense or no knowledge of, what do they actually need to know in 2nd and 3rd grade. And, because I'm not a teacher myself, I just, that was kind of the structure that helped me make sure that we covered all the different areas we needed to cover.
Right.
And then we did reading every day where they would read for each other. I would also read out loud from a storybook. And then after that, it was just sort of open free time. They could do, computer, go outside, whatever they wanted to do. Then once a week we had history. And when you do homeschooling in Denmark, then based on the age of the child, there are certain subjects that the law requires you to teach. So because they were in 3rd grade, then history had to be part of it. So once a week we had history. And then on Fridays we would watch a movie, and then we live really close to an ice skating rink, so we'd also go ice skating quite often. So that was kind of like our daily routine. The thing that really amazed me was that when I took my son out of school, he was so behind academically. I thought that he was never going to sort of catch up because he was so far behind. In 3 months, he did 18 months worth of math.
Wow.
And in Danish, which, in the US, the equivalent would be English, he did 2.5 years of Danish in 9 months.
Wow.
And that's the, when the social aspects of the day and the learning aspects of the day were split instead of being put together, his capacity just multiplied. Like he had the capacity to do so much more when he could just sit and do it in his own time, in silence, with no distractions and stuff. So he actually got caught up. And when he started school last August, then he was all caught up. So he could start 4th grade just like everyone else his age.
Wow, amazing.
So these were the checklists that we made, and then he would just sort of tick off. This is all in Danish, like the stuff I've written on there. And then we would just sort of go through day by day. And so this is his best friend that was with us for a year. So this was sort of morning meditation. I managed to snap a picture in the 2 minutes. Then I found in our local supermarket, they had like a big basket of, just like sale items that they were trying to get rid of. And in that was like a pack of cards where they had yoga poses on each of the cards.
Nice.
And so I got that one. And so what we did was every morning we shuffled the cards, and then they pulled a certain number of cards each. And then we did those yoga moves. So then it wasn't like we were doing the same thing every day, but we were trying a few different ones.
Right.
So they ended up learning all kinds of stuff. And it was a kind of a fun way to practice balance and focus and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, commercial break. Here we go. For those who can go on Learning with Jasmine YouTube channel, I did a live show with a yoga instructor. Yeah, and so later on she did do some poses that we could do. So go back and watch the yoga video. That was really good. Yes. So yes.
Cool. Do I just keep going when it's
yes, you can keep going,
okay.
keep going.
Okay.
That was your commercial break for you to
I see, cool.
I know you were talking, so that was your commercial break.
Cool. No, and then like I mentioned, I have my own business, so I also had work that I had to do at the same time. So this was like a typical day in our house. I would have my laptop open and then have the 3 kids, if my youngest son was home from kindergarten, have the 3 kids, working on different stuff and trying to help them and answering some emails and stuff. So
Right.
it was like an exercise in, well, basically it was like the preamble to Corona shutdown and what a lot of parents have been doing during Corona shutdown.
You know what? This picture right here is kind of like what I did yesterday. I had it was a good game, you guys. For Jasmine, she did her math mostly independent. So she was literally right here. She was doing her math work with her manipulatives. And then I was right in the same room with my computer up. And she like, Mommy, I'm done. So then I would check her work and then she'll go to the next one. And the majority of the problems she got right by herself. So
wow.
Yes, I'm slowly but surely stepping up a notch for her to be, independent and not be really, tied into like I need to sit next to Mommy to do the work. So this reminded me of that, you guys.
Yeah.
That's where I want.
Yeah. And then we started this tradition that whenever we finished a school book, then we took a picture of it and we sent it to Grandma. So then he would always pose, be really proud, and we'd send it to Grandma, and Grandma would send a big heart back and stuff.
Oh,
so
nice.
That was one of our little traditions. And then one of the tips that my mom gave me was the importance of also breaking the routine every once in a while. That if it's only routine all the time, then it can be hard to really grow. So we kind of had the philosophy of, routine, and then every once in a while we'd break the routine. So then we did things like we live quite close to the aquarium. So we'd go to the aquarium. We went to see the Royal Jewels. We went to watch a musical once, like for kids. We went to a beach that's about an hour from here where you can look for fossils. And so we tried to, say every 3 or 4 weeks, we would do something that was, not at all our daily routine. Then we do sort of.
That's a good advice. That's a good advice.
It was my mom who gave me the tip. Because
well, go ahead, Mom.
Exactly. And then, like I said earlier, my experience was just that when the learning was split from the social experience every day, he could just do so much more, and not just from the academic side, but also socially. Because when we then had
Absolutely.
play dates, then he was so much more. He just had so much more capacity for it. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
when he was going to school, then if we had play dates, he would run out of energy after half an hour because it was too much for him. And whereas when the two were split, then when we were with other people, he also grew there. So he kind of grew in both ways and in both areas.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other thing that really grew was his curiosity. I mean, in the beginning, it was like, I'm never going to learn how to read. Everything about learning is terrible. I don't want to be doing anything. And then eventually, he was like, oh, actually, maybe I can read. Oh, hang on, I can actually read lots. And then suddenly there was just this, like, it was kind of like, he'd just been unleashed, because all of this curiosity popped up. And I think for him, he kind of, I think the confidence he got from seeing that he could actually learn, just made
Mm-hmm.
him kind of think the sky was the limit. So he was, one day he would come and say, like, Mom, I really like to learn Japanese. And I was like, okay, I'll check if there's an app for that. And then he was like, I really want to learn painting, and actually I'd like to play the guitar as well. And German, that's a good language to learn too, right?
Well, go ahead. Well, here's a flip side of me. I am 3 classes away with my master's in English second language. Now,
Wow, cool.
I don't know any other language besides English, but I teach I teach students English, and so I love to hear that. Definitely, any other language, definitely, and yes, I need to learn another language too. But yes, this is awesome. Okay,
So
all
yeah,
right. So that's part 2 of the presentation.
yeah.
We're building up. We're building up. Okay, so literally, my presenter, one of my presenters again, say, "Oh my goodness, watch this video," and so I watched the video of you explaining to the viewers the superhero brain. What is that? No, first let's stop. Let's go back. Let's give some encouragement. Let's end off with the superhero. Um, uh, uh, any parents right now, anyone who's watching, what can you give advice, encouragement um, to go from there?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be trust your instincts and trust your gut feeling about your kids. No matter how many degrees people have and what kind of experts they are, your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the only, when I look back at my journey over the last 5 years, the only times where I wish I'd done something different is when I didn't listen to my gut feeling. When I was listening to the people who ought to know better and should know better, and they said, no, we don't think that he needs this. We think it'll be fine to continue down this road, and I could just see it getting worse and worse. And so I think trust your gut is my best autism parenting advice.
Yeah, that was me a while back, and then now I'm like, whatever it is, whatever I feel, it's probably that right situation.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna happen. Yeah, so I definitely agree with you with that one. Is to trust. We know our children,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and really be honest, you sometimes our children knows us.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
know, it's just interesting because I posted this on my personal page, you guys, but it was funny. I have to like literally share, and I'll probably share it with you guys once we get off. And it was a video. It was late at night last night, and you talk about like just knowing your child know you or whatever. And so it was late. It was after 10 o'clock. I totally say, Jasmine, your bedtime has passed. You need to be in your bed. And she knew I was up, And so she was like literally crawling to me. She's 9, you guys, crawling to me. Didn't say a word. I didn't say a word either. Crawling to me. And like literally, like say I'm right here, and she's like laying her head on my lap, trying to make my trying to make me respond to her, but I completely ignored. And then finally, she was like, "This is sleep." It was so cute. I was cracking up. I was like, "Is she asleep?" Okay. So I kind of walked her to the bed, and then you were talking about the yoga. She's like, "Mommy, I want my music." So there's a yoga YouTube channel that we listened to it, and I within 5 minutes she was happily asleep. But it's so cute. She's laying her head on my lap. She was trying to get my attention, you guys. But
Yeah.
because I told her to go to bed, she wanted that reaction.
Yeah.
And so I completely ignored her. And she was like, okay, I might just sleep. But it was so cute.
Gonna sleep sitting up then.
But definitely trust your instinct, you guys. Probably 99% of the time, you are right. You know your children. You definitely know your children.
Yeah.
Okay, and so because you know your children, please tell us about superhero brain.
Yeah, so the story of the superhero brain started when my oldest son got his diagnosis, because
Mm.
I had this illusion that I could go onto Amazon and I could buy a kid's book, just like you can buy a kid's book for, oh, you're going to be a big brother, or you're going to be a big sister, or, you know. And so I went on there, and this is like 5 years ago. So there are lots of books that have come since then.
Mm.
But at the time, I could only find 3 books on Amazon that were kids' books about autism. And so
Mm.
I ordered all 3 of them. They arrived. I read one of them, and it didn't really tell me anything. It was a cute story, but like it didn't tell me anything about autism. And then the 2
Mm.
others, I read them, and I was like, I'm not reading this to my kid, because
Well,
it was
don't
like,
let's not name the book, you guys.
I
Just
won't. I won't. Because it was, for me, it was so focused on it being a disability, and my son doesn't think of himself as disabled. He knows that he functions differently in different ways, but I didn't want to read him a story that was gonna leave him feeling like he was less. I wanted him to feel like he could understand why he was different. And to me, those were 2 very different things. And so I remember in one of the books, there was actually a page where it said, have you ever noticed that you stare at things for longer than other people do? And I was like, first of all, at 5, he doesn't have the awareness about how long he stares at things compared to how long other people stare at things. And second of all, like, how is that going to help him understand himself? So anyways, I looked at these books and I was like, okay, like I can't read this to him. So I'm going to need to find my own way to explain autism to him. And so I was kind of thinking about like, how do I explain this to him? And then one day we were at home. He was watching Peppa Pig on TV. And we lived in an apartment and had like a little balcony, and the balcony door was open, and we lived on a really quiet street, like nothing ever happened there. And then as I'm sort of, just walking around at home, he says, Mom, could you close the balcony door, because I can't hear the TV for the car starting. And I was like, what car is starting? So I went out on the balcony, I looked down, and like 400 yards down the road, there was a car that was starting its engine. Wow. And for his ears, that was so loud that he couldn't hear Peppa Pig that was like, 3 feet away from him.
Wow.
And in that moment, because I loved to watch Superman movies when I was a kid, and in that moment, I was like, this is like Superman. Like, when there's like a cave that's collapsed, or, a skyscraper that's collapsed, then Superman can hear people screaming from the rubble, and then he knows where they are, and then he goes and saves them. And so I was like, actually, when I think about it, most superheroes have super strong senses in one way or another. Like with Spider-Man, it's all about the tactile. Superman can hear, apart from being strong and flying, he can also hear. And so I just kind of thought, actually, it's like he has a superhero brain. And
Mm-hmm.
so then I wrote a little story about, that there's one kind of brain called the autistic brain, and that's a bit of a funny name. Some people call it the superhero brain instead, because it means you have superpowers inside your head. And
Oh,
so
it's cute. It's cute. Hey.
so then I talked about the different senses and how, how because he has a superhero brain, then his brain picks up on more stuff than a lot of other brains do. And that's a really cool thing, but it can also mean that you get tired easier than other kids do.
That's true. That's true.
And so then you need to, if you have a superhero brain, it means you need to learn how to feel your own energy, and you need to be able to know when you need some quiet time to rest and restore and that sort of thing. And so so I wrote him that story, and then I sort of before I told him the story, I thought, well, we've got his younger brother here, and I didn't know that he had autism at the time.
Mhm.
But I thought, I can't tell the older brother that he's got a superhero brain and then turn around to my younger son and go, and you're normal. That's not gonna that's not really gonna fly. So
Right.
then I started thinking, well, what's actually his superhero powers? And then I thought, well, growing up with a brother who was self-harming, and he's not anymore, but at the time, he had a lot of difficult behavior and stuff. I thought, well, actually, he's had to deal emotionally with much more than a lot of
That's
other kids his
true.
age. And
That
so
is so true.
I just felt like he was in many ways more mature and had experienced more than a lot of other kids his own age. So I thought, well, that's kind of like he has a superhero heart. So then
Oh.
so I explained it as they both have superhero powers, but they have different superhero powers. And then a few years later, I wrote a different story about superhero guts, and that was about parenting. Because I think when you're an autism parent, you kind of have to have superhero guts. So, but that's kind of a different story.
Look, I told you guys. Oh my goodness. And I
Yes.
saw the video with you and your children. I think it was just both,
Yeah.
it was both of them, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I was like, I have to have her on my show. This is my mother always says, you always on Facebook. And I'm like, but I'm working. It's all
Yeah.
about learning with Jasmine.
I promise. So,
doing whatever. I'm literally texting people, can you be on my show? And oh my goodness, this is awesome. Okay,
and
so hold on, commercial break. We are definitely going once everything is finished. We are finished with this live show. You have a chance to ask questions. She'll ask Christel can answer your questions. She can put her website on the comments below. All this is all on Facebook, you guys. And so everything that you need, contacts, whatever. It's her show, okay? I'm not a part of this. Comments. Okay. And then we can go from there how to get the book, everything that goes along with that. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, and so, but when I wrote these stories, I just wrote them for my kids. Like I didn't write them with the idea that they were going to turn into books. And then it was, I think, 2 years later, it was World Autism Day, and then I just took a little snippet of the story, and I put it
You
on my
can't do all.
Facebook.
You can't tease people that.
That's
This
what I
is
realized.
nice.
Is
Yes, this is
I
really
just put
good.
it on my Facebook post, and I said, like, this is how we talk about autism in our house. And then I just got this like flood of responses from people saying, can you
Yes.
send us the whole story? I'd love to share this with my grandson, or my cousin has autism, or and like some people wrote to me and said, like, I cried when I read it, this is so beautiful. And I was like, whoa. And so then I started working on getting them published, and they then got published the year after that. And that's now, let's see, that's 4 years ago now. And they're really, really
I'm gonna get a copy. I'm definitely gonna get a copy.
I'll send you one. I'll send you one as
Oh,
thanks for
thank
having me on the
you.
show.
Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, they're really, any day now they're going to reach the 10,000 mark, where they've sold 10,000 copies.
And we're gonna do more, you guys. Let's go.
So they're in
Oh,
you know, doctors' waiting rooms, and they're in schools, and they're in families
oh
all
my
over the
goodness.
world. Every once in a while I get these messages from people. You know, I got a message from a college student in Canada who had seen my video somehow and said, you know, I grew up, my older brother has autism, and I grew up as his brother, and I really wish that we had this when I was growing up, because it would have really helped me understand what was going on. And so it's just you know, it's just an honor, and really, really touching that the story that I wrote for my kids can help other
Wow.
kids.
Wow. Well, you know, this is how Learning with Jasmine started. So I did a video of a parent's feelings like, I can't do this. This is a rough day. And people from Europe on Facebook
Wow.
saw me and was contacting me. Do it again. What? Do what? The video. What video? And so that was a year ago. And I was like, okay, I'll do another video like this again. But they were saying how I was real.
Yeah.
I was real with my feelings and wasn't sugarcoating how it felt like as a parent. You know, some days are good, some days are challenging, but we're learning together, learning with Jasmine. And that's how Learning with Jasmine has come about.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I'm trying to tell you, we're intertwined. The similar stories on how everything our mothers didn't really say everything, but it's definitely a great books. There are great books to really look at. I definitely want to read that to my daughter. I definitely want to, you know.
Speaking of that, actually, let me show you one thing now that we're talking about the books.
Okay,
I
yeah.
got this so that I could show it. Let's see, how do I? So when I did the illustrations, then one of the things that I felt really strongly was that, especially with kids with autism, it's so important that they can kind of see their own reflection in the character. And so each of the books, the illustrator did two for boys and two for girls, one with a lighter complexion and one with a darker complexion. And so that way, I'm hoping that, you know, of course, you know, no one's going to look exactly like that, but that at least it can get close enough that they can look in the book and say, yeah, that's me right there.
I love it. I love it.
So that's actually, and that was actually, I think it was actually the first children's book for about explaining autism where there was actually a girl character. Like when I looked, when I was doing mine,
that's true. You see a voice. Yeah.
It was like
because boys are actually common. For those who are not, those who are listening, boys are boys are usually like age 4, age 5 with a diagnosis, and there's more boys than girls who would have autism. That's why for Jasmine, in her case, it's set around 7, but I kind of knew a little bit before then, but it wasn't full blown. The very first thing that I noticed was she kept doing this. Well, this is the very first sign of what physical autism, you know, may look like. And I was like, why are you flapping your arms like that? And then I remembered the parent who told me about their child in the preschool. And I was like, okay, she has autism. And so then when I was talking to few friends of mine who actually specialize in autism, and some of them are parents of a child who has autism, they said, well, this is the very first sign. This is around 6 years old. Wing it a little bit more, it will be known full blown around 7. So it was like right around 7, within 5 minutes, they said she has autism. I mean, it was clear, clear now. But I love your story. I love the way the illustrator will, you know, put towards, you know, like you said, different shades of people to reflect, and then also the girl side. I really do appreciate your work. I remember I saw it. I saw the video, and I was like, oh yes. And it was a while for us to get to where we are today.
It was.
It was
Oh,
a
that
challenge, you
reminds me.
guys.
I have one more thing
Yes,
that I
go
wanted
ahead,
to
go
go
ahead.
to if we
Go
have
ahead.
time. We talked about sort of the parenting side. I told you that I wrote something called the Superhero Guts.
Yes.
And so this is a little thing from it, and for me it sums up my journey, which is, I read somewhere how diamonds grow. It starts with an ordinary piece of coal. Then with lots of pressure over time, it turns into a diamond so sublime. Some days I wonder, could it be? This experience will make a diamond out of ordinary me.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Absolutely will.
That for me is like what the autism parenting journey is really like. There's lots of pressure.
Absolutely will.
But
Yes.
you do come out a better human being at the other side, I think, because you have to both learn and also let go of a whole lot of stuff.
Right there. Let me tell you. Now, for those who have not been listening, have not followed me, okay, I'm gonna let y'all know. Learning with Jasmine came about, but then I was still stressed. Like, how I'm sharing this all or whatever, but I'm still stressed as a parent. And then finally, I'm a person as a believer, and I literally was like sitting down in my room one day, and I was like, I got a word, and the word was saying, you have surface patience, but not inner.
Wow.
Okay, here we go. This is for somebody. This is the gut part. This is the gut part right here. It looks like you have patience, but you don't. You pretend that you have patience, but you don't. And because your child has autism and global development delay, which is actually a part of their own environment, autism right here, the environment of themselves, global development delay, the feelings and sensory of other people. So she can sense your inner feeling versus what you portray to have out.
And you know what?
That was a word right there, you guys. Write that down, you guys.
But you know what? There's actually science to that. There's actually science that shows that. Yeah.
It sure is.
Yeah. So
after that, I was conscious. I was being more aware of how I was feeling inside. So I'm all about self-care. Before I walk outside this room, I have to make sure I feed myself. I have positive energy. And from 7 to 10 times of meltdown and tantrums per day, per hour, from last year, March to October of this last past year, to October to now, she maybe, I don't remember, 2 or 3 times per month within a maybe up to 20 minutes of an episode altogether, not an hour long. She had a healthy meltdown. I posted this, you guys, on Monday, how to healthy meltdown. She was frustrated. I allowed her to be in her feelings versus, come on, sit down, and I'm pretending, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and she's feeding off of my energy. 90% of her energy, her behavior was because of me. So now I'm a parent supporter. I dive into how you feel as a parent. Because if you don't feel like you don't want to do it, I'm going to tell you this, honey, don't do it. Don't force your child to do something that you don't want to do right now. And so now Jasmine says, Mommy, I want me time. Hey, go ahead, baby girl. You can have me time all you want to. So,
That's
but the
fantastic.
energy now is been peaceful. So if she has a tantrum, I ignore. If she has a meltdown, I come into her space and I allow her to express her feelings in a healthy way. And I've noticed that even when she may have a major tantrum, it's not as bad as it used to be, you know? I mean, it used to be like, oh, the hitting, the kicking, the biting, the throwing. You talking about self care for your harm care for your not harm care, harmful actions for your child. But Jasmine wouldn't do that. Jasmine would do the opposite. She would attack me,
Mm.
but she wasn't. But basically, she was feeding off of my inner self that was heated because I don't play that mess, right? I don't entertain you hitting me. I don't like that. So I feel like, okay, Jasmine, don't hit me, but I'm boiling my skin. Well, she was feeding off of that energy inside. So this is what I'm talking about. The gut, yes, absolutely. It does play a part. But what has happened is that I have come out saying, okay, now I have to evaluate myself instead of not me evaluating her.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. And I'm so happy that we're addressing those things, the realness of what we experience every day.
Yeah.
And for that, like it says, the segment is tell your story. It's these type of videos, you guys, live videos that we do is for the other individual that cannot tell their story.
Mm.
Jasmine have not told all her story yet. She gonna do it in her own time with her own voice one day. I know it. I believe it. And as long as we continue on bringing awareness to the community about autism, let's stand up. Let's do not keep silent. We're going to do this. And so, yeah, no one can't tell me to be quiet up on my show. Is that's how it is. And so I'm so happy, you guys. Thank you, Christel, for coming on this platform to bring more awareness. I love it. I love it. And so, you guys, if you have any questions, please comment below on Facebook, and you can come on, Christel, and you can just definitely give them your website information and your contact information once I literally have finished this, and we're about to finish in a few minutes. So definitely, you guys, I told you it will be an awesome experience. And I just want to let you guys know that Learning with Jasmine is not just presentations anymore like this. It is actual personal Zoom calls that we are doing every first and third Sunday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's for each presentation, each month there's a presentation. So last month we talked about Jasmine's journey. Some parents came on and talked about their journey, their child's journey, and how oh well, this is what's happening, and the parents are giving different strategies and just having those times. Well, this coming Sunday, you guys, we are going to start off with our first part, and you can come on both Sundays. But if you don't want to, that's fine. We're going to still talk about the same topic for each month, if that makes sense. Okay. So this coming Sunday at 7:00 p.m., where we're going to talk about is parent strategies and love language. Now, let me tell you, I had to get to that point. Love language, we hear about those things as, spouse and boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever. But do we realize that our children have a love language, that we have to tap into their love language in order for us to feel like, okay, all right, we are getting close. But Jasmine and I are getting closer and closer because I'm tapping into her love language. It is so important. Yes. Did you know that you can have a child that's not close to you? Okay. So it's very important. And I'm not talking close, I'm talking about as long as you are expressing their love language, you're getting closer. When you're not expressing their love language, you want to, oh, it's me, I'm the parent, and no, you supposed to, no. That's why. That's the key right there to tap into their love language. Everyone have a love language. So it is so important, you guys, to do that. And so this is what we're going to be talking about in the month of March. And then April is Autism Awareness Month. We gonna get it, you guys. Yes. Although it's every day for us, right?
Yeah,
Always, all day. Okay. Okay. But I hope you guys have learned. I have learned something. Achievement versus time. We're gonna start doing that today. Absolutely. There's no break for that one. It's gonna start today. Okay, you guys. Christel, you want to say something before we go?
No, just thank you for having me. This has been a blast. I'm
Yes,
really happy that you asked me to come on. So just, thank you.
Any updates, Christel, let me know. I can bring you back on and you can promote whatever. This is what it is. Definitely what it is. Yes. All right. Until next time. All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.